In a small, peaceful town nestled between rolling hills and dense forests, life moved at a gentle pace. The streets were lined with charming houses, and the air carried the scent of blooming flowers in spring. It was here that Clara Johnson lived, a young woman whose presence brought comfort to everyone around her. Clara worked as a nurse at the local clinic, where she spent her days tending to patients with kindness and care. To most people, she seemed like an ordinary woman, soft-spoken, warm-hearted, and always ready to lend a helping hand. But what no one knew was that beneath her calm exterior lay a past filled with danger, courage, and extraordinary skills. Clara's journey began years ago when she joined the military straight out of high school. She wasn't driven by glory or adventure. Instead, she wanted to make a difference. Her natural talent for healing quickly earned her a spot as a field medic, a role that required not only medical expertise but also nerves of steel. On countless battlefields, Clara had patched up wounded soldiers under heavy fire, often risking her own life to save others. Over time, she became known among her comrades as someone who could handle pressure with remarkable composure. Yet, despite her success, Clara grew weary of the violence and chaos that surrounded her. After serving for nearly a decade, she decided it was time to leave the military behind and start fresh. When Clara moved to this quiet town, she hoped to bury her past and live a simple life. She found solace in her work at the clinic, where her patients appreciated her gentle touch and reassuring words. Outside of work, she kept to herself, rarely speaking about her previous life. To her neighbors, she was just another friendly face. In the community, a woman who loved gardening and enjoyed taking long evening walks. No one suspected that the unassuming nurse walking down their streets had once been a fearless warrior on the front lines. One fateful evening, Clara finished her shift at the clinic later than usual. The sun had already dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the town. As she locked up the clinic and prepared to head home, she decided to take her usual shortcut through a narrow alleyway. This path, though dimly lit, saved her nearly 10 minutes of walking time. Clara had used it countless times before without incident, so she thought nothing of it as she stepped into the alley. The air felt cooler here, the distant hum of traffic fading into silence. Halfway through the alley, however, Clara noticed something unusual, a faint rustling sound coming from behind some trash bins. She paused, her heart skipping a beat, but told herself it was probably just a stray cat or the wind playing tricks on her. Just as she resumed walking, 4 figures emerged from the shadows, blocking her path. Their faces were obscured by hoodies, and their postures screamed hostility. Clara instinctively took a step back, clutching her bag tightly against her chest. "Well, well, look what we have here," sneered one of the men, stepping closer. He was tall and broad-shouldered, his voice dripping with menace. "A little. Late-night stroll, huh?" Clara swallowed hard, trying to steady her breathing. She recognized them immediately. They belonged to a notorious gang that had been terrorizing the area for months. Rumors of their violent acts had spread throughout the town, leaving residents fearful and wary. Clara had heard stories of how they targeted anyone they deemed vulnerable, robbing them of valuables and sometimes even worse. Now, standing face to face with them, she understood why those tales sent shivers down people's spines. "Please," Clara said softly, raising her hands slightly in a gesture of surrender. "I don't want any trouble." The leader chuckled darkly, motioning for his companions to surround her. "No trouble. That's good to hear. Just hand over your bag and maybe we'll let you go." For a moment, Clara considered complying. Maybe if she gave them what they wanted, they'd leave her alone. Trembling, she reached into her bag and pulled out her wallet, holding it out toward them. "Here," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Take it. There's money inside." One of the gang members snatched the wallet from her grasp, flipping it open to inspect its contents. His eyes narrowed as he tossed it aside. "This is all you've got?" he spat. "We don't need your measly cash." Fear gripped Clara. As realization dawned on her, they weren't after money. They wanted something else entirely. Before she could react, one of them lunged forward, grabbing her roughly by the arm. Pain shot through her shoulder as his grip tightened, pulling her off balance. Panic surged through her veins, clouding her thoughts. For a brief second, she felt paralyzed, unsure of what to do next. But then something inside her snapped. Memories of her military training flooded back. The grueling drills, the hours spent perfecting combat techniques, the countless times she had faced danger head-on. This wasn't just about survival anymore, it was about refusing to be a victim. In that instant, Clara made a decision. She wouldn't go down without a fight. With surprising strength, Clara twisted her body sharply, breaking free from the man's hold. Before he could recover, she delivered a swift kick to his knee, sending him stumbling backward. The sudden movement caught the others off guard, giving her precious seconds to assess the situation. Adrenaline coursed through her veins as she slipped into a defensive stance, her mind racing with strategies. The gang members exchanged glances, clearly shocked by her unexpected resistance. Then, with renewed fury, they charged at her. Clara ducked under a wild punch, countering with a precise strike to the attacker's ribs. Another swung at her, but she sidestepped effortlessly, grabbing his arm mid-motion and twisting it until he cried out in pain. Each move she made was calculated, efficient, and deadly accurate, a testament to years of rigorous training. Within moments, 3 of the attackers lay sprawled on the ground, groaning in agony. Only the leader remained, standing, his expression a mix of disbelief and rage. He bared his teeth, reaching for a knife tucked into his belt. Clara's heart pounded as she watched him draw the blade, its gleam catching the faint light of a nearby street lamp. Time seemed to slow as he lunged at her, the sharp edge aimed directly at her chest. Without hesitation, Clara reacted. She sidestepped his attack, grabbing his wrist with lightning speed. With a practiced twist, she forced him to drop the knife, which clattered harmlessly onto the pavement. Using techniques she hadn't employed in years, she disarmed him completely, rendering him powerless. A final blow to his abdomen sent him crashing to the ground, gasping for air. As the last of the gang members fell, Clara stood amidst the chaos, her chest heaving with exertion. Her hands trembled slightly, but her gaze remained steady. Somewhere, in the distance, the wail of approaching sirens broke the silence. Someone must have heard the commotion and called the police. Within minutes, officers arrived on the scene, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. "What happened here?" one of the officers asked, eyeing the unconscious gang members scattered around the alley. Clara took a deep breath, steadying herself before answering. "They attacked me," she explained simply. "I defended myself." The officer raised an eyebrow, clearly skeptical. "You did all this by yourself?" Clara nodded, meeting his gaze squarely. "Yes." Word of the incident spread quickly throughout the town. By morning, everyone was talking about the nurse who had single-handedly taken down a group of dangerous criminals. Journalists descended upon the clinic, eager to interview Clara and learn more about the mysterious woman behind the heroic act. At first, Clara tried to avoid the attention, deflecting questions with vague answers. But as curiosity mounted, she realized she couldn't keep her past hidden forever. During one particularly persistent interview, Clara finally opened up, at least partially. She revealed that she had once served as a field medic in the military, explaining how her training had equipped her with the skills needed to survive such encounters. While she didn't divulge every detail of her service, her admission left listeners awestruck. Here was a woman who had walked away from a life of danger, choosing instead to dedicate herself to helping others in a quieter, more humble way. Yet Clara's newfound fame came with consequences. Rival gangs saw her actions as a challenge to their authority, viewing her not as a hero but as a threat. Threatening messages began appearing on her clinic's walls, and anonymous calls plagued her phone line. Despite the growing danger, Clara refused to let fear control her. Instead, she resolved to use her platform to inspire others, teaching self-defense classes and advocating for stronger community safety measures. Little did she know, this was only the beginning of a much larger battle, one that would force her to confront not only her enemies but also the ghosts of her past. The morning after the alleyway attack, Clara woke up to a world that felt both familiar and foreign. The sun streamed through her bedroom window, casting golden streaks across the wooden floor. Outside, birds chirped cheerfully, oblivious to the turmoil brewing in Clara's mind. She sat on the edge of her bed, staring at her hands that had once saved lives on battlefields and now bore the weight of last night's violence. For years she had tried so hard to leave her past behind, to bury the memories of war and conflict under layers of routine and normalcy. But now those memories had resurfaced with a vengeance, forcing her back into a role she thought she'd escaped. As she prepared for work, Clara couldn't shake off the feeling of unease. Her reflection in the mirror looked tired but determined. Last night's events had changed something deep within her. A part of her soul stirred awake, reminding her of who she truly was. She wasn't just a nurse. She was a survivor. Someone who had faced death countless times and emerged stronger. And though she didn't want trouble, she knew trouble had found her. When Clara arrived at the clinic, the atmosphere was anything but ordinary. A crowd of reporters and curious onlookers had gathered outside, their cameras flashing like strobe lights. Someone must have leaked details of the attack to the media overnight because by now, everyone in town seemed to know about the nurse who fought off a gang. As Clara pushed through the throng, she could hear snippets of conversations, some praising her bravery, others speculating wildly about her background. "Is it true you used to be in the military?" one reporter shouted, shoving a microphone toward her face. "How did you learn to fight like that?" another chimed in. Clara ignored them, keeping her focus on getting inside. Her boss, Dr. Patel, greeted her with a mixture of concern and admiration. "Are you okay?" he asked gently. "You've been through a lot." "I'm fine," Clara replied, though her voice betrayed a hint of exhaustion. "But I need to get to work." Dr. Patel nodded, understanding the importance of routine in moments of chaos. Still, as Clara slipped into her scrubs and began seeing patients, she couldn't help but notice how differently people treated her. Some looked at her with awe, whispering to each other as if she were some kind of superhero. Others regarded her with suspicion, their eyes narrowing as they wondered what else she might be hiding. Clara tried to brush it off, focusing instead on her patients' needs, but the weight of their stares lingered. Meanwhile, news of the incident reached far beyond the small town. Local newspapers ran headlines like, "Warrior Nurse Takes Down Gang," and "From Battlefield to Back Alley, the Untold Story of Clara Johnson." Television stations aired segments featuring interviews with witnesses and experts, all eager to analyze every detail of the story. Social media exploded with hashtags like Dar, Nurse Hero, and Real-Life Action Star, turning Clara into an overnight sensation. But fame came with complications. Anonymous messages started appearing on her phone, some congratulatory, others menacing. One text read, "You think you're tough? Wait till we find you." Another warned, "Stay out of our business or else." At first, Clara dismissed these threats as empty words, attempts to intimidate her into silence. But when graffiti appeared on the walls of the clinic, phrases like, "Snitches get stitches," and "Watch your back," she realized the danger was real. Despite the growing tension, Clara refused to let fear dictate her life. Instead, she channeled her energy into something productive. Inspired by the support she received from many in the community, she decided to start offering free self-defense workshops for women. Her goal was simple: to empower others to protect themselves, just as she had done. Word spread quickly, and soon dozens of women signed up, eager to learn from the woman who had stood her ground against impossible odds. On the first day of the workshop, Clara stood in front of a group of nervous yet hopeful participants. They ranged in age and background, from teenagers to grandmothers, but they shared a common desire to feel safer in a world that often felt unpredictable. Clara greeted them warmly, her tone calm and reassuring. "I'm not here to teach you how to be fearless," she began. "Fear is natural. It keeps us alert. What I want to teach you is how to act despite that fear, how to trust yourselves and your instincts." She demonstrated basic techniques: how to break free from a grab, how to use everyday objects as weapons, how to stay aware of your surroundings. Each move was practical, designed for real-life situations rather than flashy Hollywood stunts. The women practiced diligently, their confidence growing with every session. By the end of the workshop, many left feeling empowered, thanking Clara for giving them tools to navigate a sometimes dangerous world. While Clara focused on helping others, law enforcement officials took steps to address the growing threat posed by the gangs. Detectives visited her home multiple times, asking questions about the attackers and gathering evidence. Clara cooperated fully, providing detailed descriptions and insights based on her military experience. She even suggested strategies for dismantling organized crime networks, drawing from her knowledge of insurgent tactics. To her surprise, the police listened intently, recognizing the value of her expertise. One detective, a seasoned officer named Detective Harris, became particularly interested in Clara's case. He admired her courage and intelligence, qualities he rarely encountered in civilians. Over time, a mutual respect developed between them. Harris kept Clara informed about ongoing investigations, ensuring she stayed safe while they worked to bring the perpetrators to justice. But not everyone viewed Clara's actions positively. Rival gangs saw her defiance as a direct challenge to their authority. In their eyes, she represented everything they despised: strength, independence, and resilience. Whispers circulated in underground circles, rumors of retaliation spreading like wildfire. One evening, as Clara walked home from the clinic, she noticed a black van parked suspiciously near her house. Its windows were tinted, making it impossible to see inside. Though no one stepped out, the sight sent a chill down her spine. That night, unable to sleep, Clara sat by her window, staring at the stars. Memories of her military days flooded back: the camaraderie, the adrenaline, the heartbreak. She thought about the friends she'd lost, the battles she'd fought, and the promises she'd made to herself never to return to that life. Yet here she was, caught in a web of violence once again. It was ironic, almost poetic, how fate had a way of circling back to unfinished business. The next morning, Clara received a visit from an unexpected source, an old acquaintance named Marcus. Tall and broad-shouldered, with sharp features and piercing eyes, Marcus had been one of her closest comrades during her military service. They hadn't seen each other since Clara left the force, and his sudden appearance startled her. "Clara," he said, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. His tone was urgent, his expression grim. "We need to talk." "What are you doing here?" Clara asked, closing the door behind him. "How did you even know where I live?" Marcus hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "I heard about what happened in the alley, about the gang attacking you, and I know this isn't over." Clara frowned, crossing her arms. "What do you mean?" "They're coming for you," Marcus replied bluntly. "This isn't just about some punk kids trying to scare you. This goes deeper, much deeper." Clara's stomach tightened. "Deeper how?" Marcus sighed, running a hand through his graying hair. "The gang you took down, they're not working alone. They're part of a larger syndicate, a network of criminals operating across multiple cities. You humiliated them, Clara, and they won't forgive that easily." For a moment, Clara said nothing, letting the gravity of Marcus's words sink in. She had suspected as much, but hearing it confirmed made the danger feel more immediate, more tangible. "So what do you suggest I do?" she finally asked. "Run? Hide?" "No," Marcus said firmly. "Running won't solve anything. If anything, it'll make you an easier target. We need to take them down before they come for you." "We?" Clara echoed, raising an eyebrow. "Yes, we," Marcus repeated. "You don't have to face this alone. Let me help you." Clara studied him carefully, weighing her options. Part of her wanted to refuse, to insist she could handle things on her own. But another part recognized the wisdom in Marcus's words. She couldn't fight an entire criminal empire single-handedly. If she wanted to survive, she needed allies. "All right," she said finally. "But we do this my way." Marcus nodded, a ghost of a smile crossing his lips. "Your way it is." Over the following weeks, Clara and Marcus devised a plan to dismantle the syndicate from within. They gathered intelligence, recruited trusted contacts, including Detective Harris, and mapped out key players in the organization. Every step brought them closer to their goal but also deeper into peril. Clara knew the risks involved, but she also understood the stakes. This wasn't just about protecting herself anymore. It was about safeguarding her community, ensuring that no one else had to live in fear. As preparations intensified, Clara found herself reflecting on the journey that had led her here. From the battlefields of war to the quiet streets of her hometown, she had always sought to heal, to protect, to serve. Now, standing on the brink of another fight, she realized that perhaps her purpose had never truly changed. Whether wielding a scalpel or throwing a punch, Clara Johnson was, and always would be, a warrior in. Clara's decision to team up with Marcus marked a turning point in her life. For weeks, they worked tirelessly, piecing together information about the criminal syndicate that had set its sights on her. The two of them spent long hours poring over maps, analyzing patterns, and strategizing their next moves. Clara's military training proved invaluable as she applied battlefield tactics to urban warfare, while Marcus brought his street smarts and insider knowledge to the table. Together, they formed an unlikely but formidable partnership. Detective Harris also played a crucial role in their efforts. Though initially reluctant to involve civilians in police matters, he soon realized that Clara and Marcus possessed skills and insights that could tip the scales in their favor. With Harris's help, they gained access to classified files, surveillance footage, and undercover informants. Slowly but surely, the trio began unraveling the intricate web of corruption and crime that had taken root in the city. The syndicate wasn't just any ordinary gang. It was a sophisticated operation with layers of leadership, enforcers, and foot soldiers. Its tentacles reached into every corner of society: drug trafficking, human smuggling, extortion, and even political influence. What made it particularly dangerous was its ability to adapt, shifting operations whenever law enforcement got too close. Taking them down wouldn't be easy, but Clara refused to back down. One evening, as Clara sat at her kitchen table reviewing documents, Marcus leaned forward, his voice low and urgent. "We've identified one of their key players, a guy named Victor Kane. He's second in command and oversees most of their illegal activities in this region." Clara nodded, absorbing the information. "If we can get to him, we might be able to dismantle the entire network." "Exactly," Marcus said. "But it won't be simple. Kane is heavily guarded, and he doesn't trust anyone outside his inner circle." Harris chimed in, speaking through a secure phone line. "I've arranged for a sting operation. We'll use an undercover agent to infiltrate his crew and gather evidence, but we need someone who can act as backup, someone who knows how to handle themselves in high-pressure situations." All eyes turned to Clara. She hesitated for a moment, knowing the risks involved. Going undercover meant stepping directly into the lion's den, where one wrong move could cost her everything. Yet deep down, she knew she couldn't sit on the sidelines while others fought the battle for her. "I'll do it," she said firmly, her voice steady despite the knot forming in her stomach. Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Are you sure this isn't like taking down a few thugs in an alley? These guys are professionals, Clara. They'll kill you without blinking." "I'm aware of the risks," Clara replied. "But if I don't step up, who will?" Her determination silenced any further objections. Over the next few days, Clara underwent intense preparation for her undercover mission. Harris provided her with false identification, disguising her as a freelance contractor looking to offer her services to the syndicate. Marcus drilled her, on protocol, teaching her how to blend in, read body language, and spot potential threats. Every detail mattered, from the way she walked to the slang she used when speaking. Finally, the day of the operation arrived. Dressed in dark jeans, a leather jacket, and boots, Clara looked every bit the part of a hardened mercenary. Her heart raced as she approached the abandoned warehouse where Kane's crew was rumored to meet. The air smelled of rust and decay, and the faint hum of machinery echoed in the distance. As she stepped inside, she was greeted by 4 men, their expressions unreadable. "You're late," one of them growled, eyeing her suspiciously. "My apologies," Clara said coolly, maintaining eye contact. "Traffic was a nightmare." The man smirked, clearly unimpressed. "Victor doesn't like excuses. Let's see what you've got." For the next hour, Clara demonstrated her combat skills, taking down practice dummies with precision and speed. The men watched silently, their skepticism slowly giving way to grudging respect. When she finished, Kane himself emerged from the shadows, his presence commanding attention. Tall and lean, with cold, calculating eyes, he exuded authority. "So, you're the new recruit everyone's talking about," Kane said, circling her like a predator sizing up its prey. "What makes you think you're good enough for us?" Clara met his gaze without flinching. "Because I've been where you are now and I survived." Kane studied her for a moment longer before nodding. "All right, you're in. But remember this. Loyalty is everything. Betray us and you're dead." With those chilling words, Clara officially became part of the syndicate. Over the following weeks, she navigated a treacherous landscape of deceit and danger. Each day brought new challenges, from smuggling runs to violent confrontations. She kept her true identity hidden, earning the trust of her fellow operatives while secretly gathering evidence against them. It was a delicate balancing act, one wrong move away from disaster. Back at home, Marcus and Harris monitored her progress closely, providing support whenever possible. They communicated through encrypted messages, ensuring that no trace of their collaboration fell into enemy hands. Despite the constant threat of exposure, Clara remained focused, driven by a sense of purpose that burned brighter than ever. One night, during a high-stakes meeting at a secluded estate, Clara finally struck gold. Hidden beneath her jacket was a tiny camera, recording every word exchanged between Kane and his top lieutenants. The conversation revealed damning details about the syndicate's operations, including names, locations, and future plans. If they could deliver this evidence to the authorities, it would be enough to bring the entire organization crashing down. But extracting herself from the situation proved harder than anticipated. As the meeting drew to a close, one of the guards suddenly grabbed Clara's arm, his grip tight and unforgiving. "Hold on," he said, his tone laced with suspicion. "Something's not right here." Panic surged through Clara, but she forced herself to remain calm. "What are you talking about?" she asked, feigning confusion. The guard narrowed his eyes, reaching for the camera concealed under her jacket. In that split second, Clara acted. With a swift elbow strike, she broke free from his grasp, sending him stumbling backward. Chaos erupted as the other guards lunged at her, but Clara moved with practiced efficiency, dodging blows and countering with calculated strikes. Within moments, 3 of them lay unconscious on the floor. Kane, however, was nowhere to be found. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Clara bolted toward the exit, clutching the camera tightly. Outside, Marcus and Harris waited in a getaway vehicle, engines revving. Bullets whizzed past her as she sprinted across the lawn, adrenaline propelling her forward. Just as she reached the car, a sharp pain seared through her shoulder, a bullet grazing her skin. But she didn't stop. She dove into the back seat shouting, "Go, go!" The tires screeched as they sped away, leaving the estate and the syndicate behind. Blood trickled down Clara's arm, but she barely noticed. All that mattered was the data she had risked everything to obtain. Back at a safe house, Clara handed over the camera to Harris, who immediately began analyzing its contents. The footage was clear and damning, capturing incriminating conversations that left no room for doubt. With this evidence, the police could launch a full-scale raid on the syndicate's headquarters, arresting key members and dismantling their operations once and for all. As the hours ticked by, Clara allowed herself a rare moment of rest. Sitting, alone in a quiet corner of the safe house, she reflected on the journey that had brought her here. From the quiet streets of her hometown to the shadowy underworld of organized crime, she had faced unimaginable challenges and emerged stronger each time. Yet she couldn't shake the feeling that her fight was far from over. The syndicate may have been weakened, but its roots ran deep, and revenge was something they excelled at. Despite the looming threats, Clara felt a renewed sense of purpose. She had proven to herself and to the world that even in the face of overwhelming odds, courage and resilience could prevail, and though scars both visible and invisible would remain, They served as reminders of her strength, her sacrifices, and her unwavering commitment to justice. Little did she know, the aftermath of her actions would ripple far beyond her expectations, setting the stage for a final showdown that would test her limits like never before. The days following Clara's daring escape from the syndicate's estate were a blur of activity. The evidence she had risked her life to obtain was handed over to Detective Harris, who wasted no time in assembling a task force to execute raids on multiple locations tied to the criminal organization. Armed with warrants and tactical gear, law enforcement officers descended upon warehouses, hideouts, and safe houses across the city. Dozens of arrests were made, including several high-ranking members of the syndicate. Victor Kane, however, remained elusive, slipping through the cracks like smoke. Though the operation dealt a significant blow to the syndicate, Clara knew better than to celebrate prematurely. Criminal networks like this one didn't crumble overnight. They adapted, regrouped, and retaliated. And as predicted, the backlash came swiftly. Within days, ominous messages began appearing around town, on walls, in alleyways, even scrawled across Clara's front door. "You'll pay for this." Anonymous calls flooded her phone line, each voice more menacing than the last. It was clear that the syndicate wasn't done with her yet. Despite the mounting danger, Clara refused to live in fear. Instead, she doubled down on her efforts to protect herself and those she cared about. With Marcus's help, she fortified her home, installing security cameras and reinforcing doors and windows. She also continued teaching self-defense workshops, determined to empower others to stand up against violence. Her classes grew increasingly popular, drawing participants not only from her own community, but also neighboring towns. Women, and even some men, flocked to learn from the woman who had faced death and emerged victorious. Clara's growing influence extended beyond physical training. She became a vocal advocate for systemic change, using her newfound platform to speak out against corruption and organized crime. Local news outlets invited her for interviews, where she shared stories of resilience and survival while calling for stronger community support systems. Her speeches resonated deeply, inspiring many to take action in their own lives. Yet with every spotlight moment came increased scrutiny. Some praised her as a hero, while others viewed her with suspicion, questioning whether her motives were entirely altruistic. Meanwhile, the hunt for Victor Kane intensified. Detective Harris worked tirelessly, piecing together clues and chasing leads. He coordinated with federal agencies, hoping to track Kane's movements through financial transactions and surveillance data. But Kane was cunning, always staying one step ahead. Rumors circulated that he had fled the country, seeking refuge in regions with lax extradition laws. Others claimed he was hiding in plain sight, disguised as an ordinary citizen. No matter how hard they searched, Kane seemed untouchable. One evening, as Clara returned home after a long day at the clinic, she noticed something unusual: a black sedan parked across the street. Its engine was off and the windows were tinted, making it impossible to see inside. At first glance, it looked harmless enough, but Clara's instincts screamed otherwise. She quickened her pace, glancing over her shoulder as she approached her house. Just as she reached the front door, the sedan's headlights flickered on, illuminating the driveway. A chill ran down her spine as the car slowly pulled away, disappearing into the night. That night, sleep eluded Clara. Memories of her military days haunted her dreams, visions of ambushes, explosions, and comrades lost in battle. She woke up drenched in sweat, her heart pounding like a drum. For the first time in years, she felt truly vulnerable. The weight of everything she had endured, the attacks, the threats, the constant vigilance, pressed heavily on her chest. She realized that running headfirst into danger had taken a toll on her mental and emotional well-being. Determined to regain control, Clara sought solace in routine. She started waking up earlier, dedicating mornings to meditation and exercise. She reconnected with old friends, sharing laughter and stories over coffee or long walks. These small acts of self-care helped ground her, reminding her of the beauty in everyday life. Still, the looming threat of retaliation loomed large, casting a shadow over even the happiest moments. Then, one fateful afternoon, Clara received A visit from an unexpected source. A former colleague from her military days named Elena Torres. Tall and athletic, with sharp features and piercing green eyes, Elena had been one of Clara's closest confidants during their service. They hadn't spoken in years, but Elena's sudden appearance stirred a mix of emotions in Clara: nostalgia, curiosity, and a hint of apprehension. "Elena," Clara said, opening the door wider. "What are you doing here?" Elena stepped inside, her expression grave. "I heard about what happened. About the syndicate." Clara frowned, closing the door behind her. "How did you find out?" "It doesn't matter," Elena replied, brushing off the question. "What matters is that you're in over your head, Clara. This isn't just some local gang. We're talking about international players with resources you can't imagine." Clara crossed her arms, her defenses rising. "I'm handling it." "No, you're not," Elena countered sharply. "Look at yourself. You're exhausted, paranoid, and barely holding it together. You need backup. Real backup." Clara hesitated, weighing her options. Part of her wanted to dismiss Elena's concerns, to insist she could manage on her own. But another part recognized the truth in her words. The syndicate was bigger, smarter, and more ruthless than anything she had faced before. If she wanted to survive, she needed allies she could trust implicitly. "What do you propose, Gore?" Clara asked finally. Elena smiled faintly, pulling out a folder from her bag. Inside were detailed reports, photographs, and maps, all pertaining to the syndicate's global operations. "I've been tracking them for months," she explained. "They've got ties to human trafficking rings, drug cartels, and even political extremists. Taking them down won't be easy, but we have a chance if we work together." Clara studied the documents carefully, her mind racing. This was far beyond anything she had anticipated. The syndicate wasn't just a local problem. It was a global menace, its tentacles reaching into countless lives. The realization hit her like a punch to the gut. She couldn't fight this alone, nor could she rely solely on local law enforcement. This was a mission that required expertise, coordination, and sheer determination. "I'm in," Clara said firmly, meeting Elena's gaze. "But we do this my way." Elena nodded, a flicker of relief crossing her face. "Your way it is." Over. The next few weeks, Clara, Marcus, Elena, and Detective Harris formed a tight-knit team, pooling their skills and resources to take on the syndicate. They divided tasks based on individual strengths. Harris handled legal proceedings and liaised with federal agencies. Marcus provided intelligence and logistical support. Elena coordinated international efforts, and Clara served as the linchpin, bridging gaps between military strategy and civilian law enforcement. Their first major breakthrough came when Elena intercepted a shipment of weapons destined for the syndicate's operatives. Using forged documents and decoy vehicles, they managed to seize the cargo without alerting the enemy. The haul included advanced firearms, encrypted communication devices, and stacks of counterfeit currency. More importantly, it contained valuable intel, shipping manifests, contact lists, and encrypted files that hinted at upcoming operations. As they decrypted the files, a chilling pattern emerged. The syndicate was planning a massive attack, an event designed to destabilize the region and assert dominance. Details were scarce, but one thing was certain: thousands of innocent lives were at stake. Time was running out, and failure was not an option. With renewed urgency, the team devised a plan to thwart the attack. They identified key targets: warehouses storing explosives, safe houses housing key operatives, and communication hubs used to coordinate activities. Each location would require precision and timing, leaving no room for error. Clara volunteered to lead the assault on the main command center, knowing full well the risks involved. On the eve of the operation, Clara found herself sitting alone in her living room, staring at the stars outside her window. Her mind wandered back to the choices that had brought her here, from the battlefields of war to the quiet streets of her hometown, and now to the brink of another fight. She thought about the people she had lost along the way, the battles she had fought, and the promises she had made to herself never to give up. A soft knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. It was Marcus, his expression uncharacteristically somber. "Can I come in?" Marcus sighed, leaning forward. I just wanted to say, whatever happens tomorrow, I'm proud of you. You've come so far, Clara. From the scared kid I met in boot camp to the fearless leader you are today. You've inspired so many people, including me. Tears welled up in Clara's eyes, though she quickly blinked them away. Thank you, she said softly. That means a lot. They sat in silence, for a while the weight of tomorrow's mission hanging heavy in the air. Finally, Marcus stood up, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. Get some rest, we've got a big day ahead. Clara nodded, watching as he left the room. As she prepared for bed, she allowed herself a rare moment of vulnerability. She thought about her parents, her siblings, and the life she had built for herself in this small town. She thought about the patients she cared for at the clinic, the women she taught in her self-defense classes, and the countless strangers whose lives she had touched. Whatever happened tomorrow, the aftermath of the raid on the syndicate's command center brought a mix of relief and unease to Clara and her team. The operation had been a success. They had dismantled the core leadership, seized incriminating evidence, and thwarted a catastrophic attack. Yet as the dust settled, it became clear that the battle was far from over. Victor Kane, the elusive second-in-command who had orchestrated much of the syndicate's operations, remained at large. His escape was a glaring reminder that the roots of evil ran deep, and pulling them out would require more than one decisive strike. In the days following the raid, Clara found herself caught between two worlds. On one hand, she was hailed as a hero, celebrated by the media and adored by her community. People stopped her on the street to thank her, calling her brave and selfless. Local leaders invited her to speak at events, eager to capitalize on her newfound fame. But on the other hand, Clara couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched, stalked by unseen eyes. Every shadow seemed darker, every sound louder. She knew better than to let her guard down, even for a moment. Detective Harris kept her updated on the ongoing investigation. We've arrested dozens of operatives, he told her during one of their late-night meetings. But Kane is slippery. He's gone underground and we're struggling to track him. Clara nodded, her jaw tightening. He won't stop. Not until he feels safe or until he takes revenge. Harris sighed, rubbing his temples. I know. That's why we need to stay vigilant. If he resurfaces, we'll be ready. Despite the constant threat, Clara threw herself into rebuilding her life. She returned to work at the clinic, tending to patients with the same warmth and dedication she always had. Her self-defense workshops continued to thrive, drawing larger crowds each week. Women and men came not only to learn how to protect themselves but also to hear Clara's story, to draw inspiration from her resilience. She spoke openly about her struggles, sharing lessons she had learned along the way. Strength isn't about never feeling afraid, she told her students during one session. It's about acting despite your fear. It's about trusting yourself and knowing you have the power to change your circumstances. Her words resonated deeply, earning her both admiration and loyalty. Many participants formed tight-knit groups, supporting each other long after the workshops ended. Clara felt a sense of fulfillment she hadn't experienced in years. For the first time since the attacks began, she allowed herself to hope that maybe, just maybe, she could reclaim some semblance of normalcy. But normalcy proved elusive. One evening, as Clara walked home from the clinic, she noticed something odd. A black envelope tucked under her windshield wiper. Her stomach tightened as she approached her car, her fingers trembling slightly as she opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper, its message written in bold block letters. You can't hide forever. Clara's breath hitched, her mind racing. This wasn't just a random thread, it was personal. Whoever had sent this knew where she lived, where she worked, and where she spent her free time. They were sending a message. No matter how hard she tried, there was no escaping them. That night, unable to sleep, Clara reached out to Marcus and Elena. Both agreed to meet her at a secure location, a small cabin nestled deep in the woods, far from prying eyes. When they arrived, Clara greeted them with grim determination. I think Kane's targeting me directly now, she said without preamble. "This isn't just about revenge. It's about making an example of me." Marcus frowned, his expression darkening. "If he's coming for you, we need to prepare. We can't afford to be reactive anymore." Elena nodded, spreading a map across the table. "We should set up decoys, fake trails, false leads. Make him think you're somewhere else while we hunt him down." Clara listened intently, her mind working through the possibilities. "What if we bait him?" she suggested. "Lure him into a trap using me as the target?" Elena raised an eyebrow. "That's risky. If anything goes wrong, you're dead." "It's already risky," Clara countered. "Kane isn't going to stop until he gets what he wants. At least this way, we control the terms of engagement." After hours of debate, the team reluctantly agreed to move forward with Clara's plan. Over the next few weeks, they meticulously crafted a strategy designed to draw Kane out of hiding. Using fake social media posts, staged photos, and planted rumors, they created the illusion that Clara was leaving town for a brief vacation. In reality, she stayed close to home, lying low while Marcus and Elena monitored communications and tracked potential leads. Their efforts paid off when intelligence pointed to a remote farmhouse on the outskirts of the city. According to intercepted messages, Kane planned to ambush Clara there, believing she would fall for his trap. Instead, the tables were turned. Clara, Marcus, Elena, and a small tactical unit led by Detective Harris surrounded the property, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. As night fell, the farmhouse loomed like a ghostly silhouette against the moonlit sky. Clara crouched behind a tree, her heart pounding but her focus razor-sharp. She remembered every lesson from her military days, the importance of patience, timing, and precision. This was it, the final confrontation. Suddenly, headlights pierced the darkness as a vehicle approached the farmhouse. Kane stepped out, flanked by two heavily armed guards. His face was partially obscured by a hoodie, but his cold, calculating demeanor was unmistakable. Clara signaled to her team, and within seconds, chaos erupted. Gunfire lit up the night as the tactical unit engaged Kane's guards. Clara moved swiftly, ducking behind cover and advancing toward the farmhouse. Despite the noise and confusion, her movements were deliberate, almost graceful. She spotted Kane retreating inside, clearly intent on escaping through a back exit. With adrenaline coursing through her veins, Clara followed him, her weapon drawn. Inside, the air was thick with tension. Furniture lay overturned, and shards of glass littered the floor. She heard footsteps ahead and quickened her pace, rounding a corner just in time to see Kane disappearing into another room. "Stop!" she shouted, her voice cutting through the silence. Kane froze, slowly turning to face her. For a moment, they locked eyes, two warriors standing on opposite sides of a battlefield. Then, without warning, Kane lunged at her, a knife glinting in his hand. Clara reacted instinctively, sidestepping his attack and grabbing his wrist. With a practiced twist, she disarmed him, sending the knife clattering to the floor. Enraged, Kane swung at her with his fists, but Clara countered with calculated strikes, exploiting his weaknesses. Each blow landed with precision, weakening him further. Finally, with a powerful kick, she sent him crashing to the ground, gasping for air. Breathing heavily, Clara stood over him, her weapon trained on his chest. "It's over, Kane," she said, her voice steady despite the storm raging inside her. "You lose." Outside, the sounds of gunfire faded as the remaining guards surrendered. Detective Harris entered the farmhouse moments later, handcuffing Kane and reading him his rights. As the authorities led him away, Clara leaned against a wall, her legs threatening to give out beneath her. When the dust finally settled, Clara returned home, exhausted but triumphant. The weight of the past months lifted slightly, though she knew scars, both visible and invisible, would remain. She thought about all she had endured, all she had sacrificed, and all she had gained. Through it all, she had discovered a strength. She didn't know she possessed, a resilience born of fire and forged in adversity. The following weeks brought a sense of closure. With Kane behind bars and the syndicate dismantled, the city began to heal. Crime rates dropped, neighborhoods grew safer, and people dared to dream again. Clara, too, found peace in the simple joys of life: gardening, cooking, and spending time with loved ones. Yet she remained committed to her mission, continuing to teach self-defense and advocate for justice. One evening, as she sat on her porch watching the sunset, Marcus joined her, handing her a cup of coffee. "You did good, Clara," he said, softly. "Really good." Clara smiled faintly, sipping the warm liquid. "We did good," she corrected. "None of this would have been possible without you, or Elena, or Harris." Marcus chuckled, shaking his head. "Maybe. But you were the heart of this operation. You inspired us all." For a moment they sat in companionable silence, the cool breeze carrying the scent of blooming flowers. Clara gazed at the horizon, her thoughts drifting to the future. Though the road ahead was uncertain, she felt ready to face whatever came next. After all, she had proven time and again that she was stronger than she ever imagined. And as the stars began to twinkle in the night sky, Clara whispered a quiet promise. To herself, to her community, and to anyone who dared to stand against injustice. Why, no matter how dark the world becomes, there will always be light, and I'll keep fighting to protect it. The weeks that followed Victor Kane's arrest marked a turning point not just for Clara, but for the entire town. The once fearful streets buzzed with newfound energy as people emerged from their homes, reclaiming spaces they had long avoided. Crime rates plummeted, businesses flourished, and laughter returned to parks and playgrounds. Yet despite the outward appearance of peace, Clara knew better than anyone that scars, both visible and invisible, remained. The battle against the syndicate may have ended, but healing would take time. Clara herself was no exception. Though she carried on with her daily routines at the clinic and her self-defense workshops, there were moments when the weight of everything she had endured threatened to overwhelm her. Nights were the hardest. Sleep eluded her more often than not, her dreams haunted by flashes of gunfire, shouts, and the cold glint of knives. She woke up drenched in sweat, her heart racing as if she were still in the heat of battle. It wasn't easy to admit, even to herself, but the constant danger had left its mark. One morning, after another restless night, Clara decided to visit Dr. Patel, her boss and mentor at the clinic. She found him in his office, sipping tea and reviewing patient charts. He looked up as she entered, his expression softening when he saw the weariness etched across her face. "You look like you haven't slept in days," he said gently. "What's going on?" Clara hesitated, unsure where to begin. "It's complicated," she finally admitted. "I thought things would feel different now that it's over. Safer, I guess. But instead, I can't stop thinking about everything that happened." Dr. Patel nodded knowingly. "Post-traumatic stress is common after experiences like yours. You've been through hell, Clara. It's okay to need help processing it." His words struck a chord. For so long, Clara had prided herself on being strong, on pushing forward without looking back. But maybe strength didn't mean carrying the burden alone. Maybe it meant asking for support when needed. With Dr. Patel's encouragement, she began meeting regularly with a therapist who specialized in trauma recovery. Slowly, she started unpacking the layers of fear, guilt, and grief that had accumulated over the years. Not just from the recent battles, but from her military service and the losses she had suffered along the way. These sessions weren't always easy. Some days, Clara left feeling emotionally drained, as though she had relived every painful moment all over again. Other times, however, clarity emerged from the chaos. She realized how much of her identity had been tied to survival, to proving she could endure whatever life threw at her. Now she understood that resilience wasn't about avoiding pain. It was about finding meaning in the struggle and using it to grow stronger. As Clara worked on healing herself, she also focused on helping others heal. Her self-defense workshops became more than just training sessions. They evolved into spaces for empowerment and community building. Participants shared their own stories of overcoming adversity, creating bonds that transcended age, race, and background. Many credited Clara not only with teaching them practical skills, but also with instilling confidence and courage. Inspired by this impact, Clara took her mission a step further. She founded a nonprofit organization called Rise Together, dedicated to supporting survivors of violence and promoting safety education. Through partnerships with local schools, shelters, and law enforcement agencies, Rise Together offered free workshops, counseling services, and resources to those in need. Clara poured her heart into the project, seeing it as a way to channel her experiences into something positive. The community rallied behind her efforts. Volunteers signed up in droves, eager to contribute their time and skills. Donations poured in from grateful residents, enabling the organization to expand its reach. Within months, Rise Together had transformed into a beacon of hope, inspiring similar initiatives in neighboring towns. Despite her growing responsibilities, Clara made sure to carve out time for herself. She rekindled old hobbies, spending hours tending to her garden or painting landscapes that captured the beauty of her surroundings. On weekends, she joined Marcus and Elena for hikes in the nearby hills, enjoying the serenity of nature and the comfort of their friendship. These moments of quiet reflection reminded her of the importance of balance, that while fighting for justice was vital, so too was nurturing her own well-being. Yet even as life settled into a rhythm of relative calm, Clara couldn't ignore the lingering questions about her future. What came next? Could she truly leave the past behind, or would it always be a part of her? One evening, as she sat by the fireplace flipping through an old photo album, she stumbled upon pictures from her military days. Smiling faces stared back at her, friends who had stood by her side, some of whom she would never see again. A wave of nostalgia washed over her, bringing both sadness and gratitude. The memories prompted her to reflect on her journey, the choices she had made, the sacrifices she had endured, and the person she had become. She realized that while she couldn't change the past, she could shape the legacy she left behind. Her story, a tale of courage, resilience, and redemption, wasn't just hers alone. It belonged to everyone who had ever faced fear and risen above it. With renewed purpose, Clara decided to write a book chronicling her experiences. She poured her heart onto the pages, detailing not only the battles she had fought, but also the lessons she had learned along the way. Writing became cathartic, allowing her to process emotions she hadn't fully confronted before. When the manuscript was complete, she titled it, "From Shadows to Light: A Journey of Strength and Survival." The book resonated deeply with readers, becoming a national bestseller and earning praise for its honesty and inspiration. Through the success of her memoir, Clara gained opportunities to speak at conferences, universities, and advocacy events across the country. Her speeches emphasized themes of unity, perseverance, and the power of collective action. Audiences listened intently, moved by her authenticity and passion. Many approached her afterward, sharing how her story had given them hope during their darkest moments. But perhaps the most meaningful aspect of Clara's journey was the connections she forged. Strangers reached out to thank her for giving voice to their struggles, while friends and family expressed pride in her accomplishments. Detective Harris remained a steadfast ally, collaborating with her on initiatives to combat organized crime. Marcus and Elena stayed close, their bond strengthened by the trials they had overcome together. One day, as Clara stood on stage addressing a packed auditorium, she paused mid-sentence, overcome by emotion. Looking out at the sea of faces, she saw reflections of her own journey, people who had faced unimaginable challenges yet refused to give up. In that moment, she understood that her true legacy wasn't fame or accolades. It was the ripple effect of her actions, the countless lives she had touched simply by choosing to fight for what was right. When the event concluded, Clara lingered behind, signing copies of her book and chatting with attendees. A young woman approached her, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Thank you," she whispered, clutching the book tightly. "Your story saved me. I didn't think I could keep going, but hearing how you kept fighting, it gave me strength." Clara smiled, placing a reassuring hand on the woman's shoulder. "You're stronger than you know," she said softly. "And remember, you don't have to do it alone. We rise together." As Clara walked home that night, the stars twinkling above, she felt a profound sense of fulfillment. Her life had taken unexpected turns, leading her down paths she never imagined. Yet, through it all, she had remained true to herself, to her values, her compassion, and her unyielding determination to make a difference. The warrior nurse had become more than a symbol of resilience. She had become a catalyst for change. And though the road ahead might hold new challenges, Clara faced them with unwavering faith in the power of light to conquer darkness. After all, she had proven time and again that even in the bleakest moments, courage could shine brightest. And so, Clara Johnson continued her journey, not as a lone fighter, but as a leader, a healer, and a beacon of hope. Her story served as a reminder that heroes aren't born, they are made, one brave choice at a time.